they're gonna let us know what they're planning on doing.
Okay.
We haven't gotten that,
They wait until the
confirmed
last,
from them.
last minute on them.
Yeah. I know Christie called them today to find out how they're gonna handle it, so we should have it by tomorrow at our time.
Okay, like, I remember New Year's, they're usually the same, they usually don't worry about it, and sometimes, I don't know, it depends on Christmas.
Yeah. I'm guessing they'll be working Monday.
Which means the city council may need it on Tuesday then,
Yep.
next week, next week.
Both.
Yeah.
It's 5:30, so we'll call to order this meeting for Monday, December 19th. Jordan, would you start us off with a roll call, please?
Please respond by stating present. Councilmember Ronayne,
Present.
Faubourg,
Present.
Liebelt,
Present.
Reif,
Present.
Johnson,
Present.
Reinbold,
Present.
Langer, Norvstrup,
Present.
Mayor Schoeneman.
Present. Please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. First order of business will be to approve this week's agenda. Take a motion to do that.
Move to approve. Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Reinbold and a second from Johnson. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, we've got the approval of the minutes for our previous meeting, which took place on December 5th. Can I get a motion to accept those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
The motion from Councilman Johnson, second from Councilwoman Liebelt. Any changes from the council on any of that? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion does carry. Now, we've got a special guest from the Aberdeen Boys and Girls Club. We've got some carolers who will be joining us here today. So, I would say make your way to the front, if you'd be so kind. Or where were you planning to, where do you think is the best spot here?
Right there.
Got a room for 'em right there.
Perfect. Thank you guys for joining us.
You better watch out, you better not cry, you better not pout, I'm telling you why. Santa Claus is coming to town. He's making a list and checking it twice. Gotta find out who's naughty and nice. Santa Claus is coming to town. He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows if you've been bad or good, so be good for goodness sake. Oh, you better watch out. You better not cry. You better not pout, and I'm telling you why. Santa Claus is coming to town. Santa Claus is coming to town.
Thank you guys very much. Really appreciate it.
2 more songs.
Hello, Joker.
We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Glad tidings we bring.
That was
thanks for
awesome.
probably the cutest open forum we've had to date, I would have to think. All right, so we'll move along to our consent calendar where we've got 2 items. We've got a retail wine license renewal, a couple of those, as well as a bid date to be set for surplus property structures to be sold, as well as the notice of the sale and those conditions. I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilwoman Foberg and a second from Councilman Reinbold. Does anyone in the council have anything to bring up on either of these 2 items? All right, then all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion does carry. We'll move along to our new business where we've got a possible first reading of an ordinance titled 22-1201, which amends city code regarding the issuance of building permits. And Ron, are you going to tell us a little bit
I'll
about that
start
here
it off.
tonight?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually requested the planning and zoning director to sponsor this with me, but this is really more of an enforcement side of things. If you'll notice in the ordinance that we have drafted, there is a footnote there that talks about zoning permits required at section 60-218. What this ordinance amendment does is it includes in the building permits chapter, at chapter 12 of the Aberdeen City Code, a clear reference to the requirement for a building permit to be obtained before undergoing the construction or the work. So that's what the change is at section 12-112A, is to make that language clear. Otherwise, upstairs in the planning and zoning, they're required to basically point to whatever technical building code might be in play for a particular request for a building permit, and this just makes it cleaner and clearer within the code itself. Staff recommends approval of the ordinance amendment.
I'll move it.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Johnson, and a second from Councilman Reinbold. And I know that I had talked to Brett about this a bit, Ron, but there will be no functional changes for the way that people get them, for the type of projects that'll be required to get permits or that sort of a thing.
Absolutely none. In fact, the language there requires that they obtain whatever building or zoning permit is required. So there will be no new permit, just reference to the adopted technical codes.
Other questions from the council on this one? All right, that's an easy one then. Jordan, would you give us a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Ronayne,
Aye.
Foberg,
Aye.
Liebelt,
Aye.
Reif,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Norvstrup,
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got a possible first reading of an ordinance titled 22-1202, which amends our fire prevention and fire protection regulations of the city code. And we've got Max Stoltenberg here joining us tonight. Max, thanks for joining us. Can you outline this possible change to the ordinance for us, please?
Yes, sir. So, section 24-47, we just want to update to the 2018 version. Currently, we're using the 2015 version. We want to update so we can marry up with our building department with their 2018 version building code.
Normally, when we amend the building codes, we include the fire code along with it. But at the time, we had a new fire marshal, and it wasn't done at that time. And now that Max is on as fire marshal, we got together to kind of get things figured out, make any amendments that need to be made, and then adopt this so that it's, you know, in line with what we currently have for building code.
And then Max, on section 2453, all that language is just obsolete because that's all inclusive of the 2018 Universal
sir.
Code. Sounds like a kind of a tidying of bookwork for most part here. Any questions from the council on?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
A motion from Councilman Johnson, second from Councilwoman Liebelt. Any further questions from the council on this one? Jordan, would you give us a roll call vote?
Councilmember Norvstrup,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Reif,
Aye.
Liebelt,
Aye.
Fauberg,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Thank you very much for joining us, Fire Marshal Stoltenberg. Appreciate your insight into this and your work on it. Next, we've got a possible first reading of an ordinance 22-1203, which supplements the 2022 budget for various unanticipated projects, activities, and expenses. Jordan, what can you tell us about that?
Thank you, Mayor. This ordinance, as presented and circulated, provides for the supplement and transfer of cash across our government as a whole. You'll see common things such as fuel and material expenses being higher than budgeted. You'll also see various repair work that was completed through the course of the year and transfers of cash related to that. I'll note that, for instance, we're purchasing a fire equipment out of next year's budget, so you'll see a transfer there for that. Various repairs at the police department, fuel, of course, repairs at the ARC, water utility usage, electric and heating fuel, various street-related projects, and of course the costs have been higher than anticipated there. Expenses related to debt service in our debt service funds, where revenue may have come in higher, and this gives us the authority to pay out that debt service. A transfer out in our water fund to allow for the repayment of water utility, concession expense within our Parks and Rec fund, and a supplement for expenses within the golf department. Since the publication of the original ordinance, I have prepared an amendment which provides for an additional $200,000 for snow removal due to the recent snow event and the delivery of materials and equipment. An additional amount of transfer out for golf in the amount of $200,000 for a potential negative cash balance within the golf fund. An additional $200,000 for transfer to the Park and Rec fund to avoid possible negative cash, and $200,000 for professional service within the golf budget itself. What we're asking for today is a motion second to approve the ordinance as published, a separate motion second to amend the ordinance, and that would be first reading.
I move to adopt the ordinance as published.
I'll second.
Got a motion from Councilman Ronayne and a second from Councilman Johnson to adopt the motion as published. Would anyone from the council care to make a motion on the amendment, which included additional funds to some various entities as outlined by our finance director?
I would so move.
And second.
Got a motion on the amendment from Councilman Ronayne and a second from Councilman Johnson. So, any questions on that? So the grand total for golf-related activities is $200,000 or $400,000?
The amount is $200,000.
Okay.
So what you're seeing there is within the golf fund itself, there's $200,000 of expense. It will come from the Parks and Rec fund. If there is not cash for that, the Parks and Rec fund would be supplemented $200,000 from special sales tax. So it's shifting cash around for that purpose. There should be adequate cash within the Parks and Rec fund. This is just providing for that instance that there would not.
Any other questions from the council? All right. Jordan, would you give us a roll call vote on this first reading then, please?
On the amendment?
And the amendment. Start with the amendment.
All right. Councilmember Ronayne.
Aye.
Fauberg.
Aye, except I don't know if any of these TIF funds are payments to Dakota Bank. Do you know?
TIF 29.
6 is, but are any of the ones that are
32.
articulated in here? If there are any, I abstain from that one. How's that sound?
Yes. Councilmember Liebelt.
Yes.
Reif.
Aye.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Reinbold.
Aye.
Norvstrup.
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next we've got the motion, or the vote for the ordinance itself.
That was, okay, yep, there you go, I'm sorry.
And if there's nothing else from the council on that, we would take our first vote on the ordinance itself. Jordan?
Councilmember Norvstrup,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Rife,
Aye.
Liebelt,
Aye.
Foberg,
I accept abstain from any TIFs that are related to Dakota Bank.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Mayor Shonman.
Aye, motion does carry. Move along to our possible first reading of an ordinance titled 22-1204, which supplements the 2022 budget for Parks, Rec, and Forestry Department activities. Jordan, what can you tell us about these?
Thank you, Mayor. This is much more straightforward. This is a quarterly supplement transfer for gift fund related activities within the Parks and Rec fund. You'll see donated expense in the various Park and Rec funds, including the 208 Parks and Rec Fund, the 614 Parks and Rec Enterprise Fund, and the 210 Gift Fund. Staff recommends approval.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Reinbold and a second from Councilwoman Liebelt. Any questions from the council or anything to bring up on this topic before we take our vote? Jordan?
Councilmember Ronayne,
Aye.
Foberg,
Aye.
Liebelt,
Aye.
Rife,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Norvstrup,
Aye.
Mayor Shonman.
Aye, motion does carry. Thank you. Next, we'll move along to our public hearing on a petition to vacate the public right-of-way and a possible approval of a resolution titled 22-1201R, which vacates 66-foot wide 2nd Avenue Southwest public right-of-way commencing 122 feet west of 4th Street, as well as continuing on 100.45 feet west to the point of termination adjacent to the railroad right-of-way located between lots 3A, Marty and 6th subdivision to the city of Aberdeen at 116 South 4th Street, as well as 418 3rd Avenue Southwest. Mr. Brett Bill, what can you tell us about this right-of-way?
The petitioners are submitting this petition to vacate undeveloped public right-of-way with the intention of combining it with their adjacent properties, one of which is being currently developed. An application to allow mini storage units on the property located at 418 3rd Avenue Southwest is approved by the Aberdeen Board of Zoning Adjustment at their November 10th, 2022 meeting. This petition to vacate public right-of-way was approved by the Aberdeen Planning Commission on June 15th of 2022, with a stipulation that the petitioners have a plat prepared to combine the vacated right-of-way with their adjacent lots, and easements must be established for any existing utilities within the right-of-way. Staff and Planning Commission recommend approval.
I'll move to approve it.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Ronayne, a second from Councilman Reinbold. Anyone from the council have anything on this? So Brett, normally when we vacate something, it's because it's no longer functional as a usable right-of-way for traffic, and that's the case in this situation.
That's correct. This right-of-way is never developed. We refer to it as a paper right-of-way because it only is on paper. I can see, as you can see in the aerial photo in your map, you can see it's been driven on, but it is more of a trail than right-of-way, and it leads to railroad right-of-way, which the railroad does not want people accessing or utilizing. So in our stance, it was a good reason to vacate that.
Is this like south of the UPS store, or the UPS?
Aaron, do you know where the old Mardians location was, the old scrapyard?
Oh, yeah.
Just east of the overpass. It's just north of that nicer, newer building that they built.
Okay.
Just on the north side of Ladner's Electric. Or it'd be on the south side of the nice new building, north side of Ladner's Electric. Okay, anything else from the council? All right, Jordan, would you give us a roll call vote on this first reading, please? Or I guess this is it? Oh, sure, I didn't catch you back there. If you want to, give you a few moments to say your piece. There is a green light that'll be on if you press the button towards the front of that microphone. It should be green if you press the button. All right. Why don't you state your name and what you'd like to tell us?
Ken Beekler. I live at 202 South 4th Street. And I don't want the street closed. More or less. I even went and talked to railroad today, and they didn't know nothing about it. And they very seldom ever trespass anybody, because that's one of the things that city, that you guys have been saying, that there's no trespassing. And they said, long as you drive on it and show respect, they don't care. I was over and talked to 2 different people at the railroad today. But one thing too along the way, well, my driveway comes out on 2nd Avenue. And I do go west at times too on that. Because there's been certain times 2nd Avenue was blocked at the corner where I couldn't get out any other way. They came and all of a sudden they just closed it with no notice. But then I'm trying to think that I know you guys want more taxes, but I can't figure out how wide is actually a city street. So it's 33. They'd get. So it'd be 33 feet halfways. But the street, then it'd be technically the boulevard added in on that or whatever. Okay. One thing I wanted to comment on too, that either party or both parties I would think they should have showed some respect and come talk to the people that live on the 2nd Avenue and 4th Street. If I wouldn't have seen the sign that was hidden behind on the building, I wouldn't have known nothing about this. And I wouldn't have been able to voice my opinion. And even the city didn't even clean the snow off. They quit and just plowed the snow in front of they turned the plow and the snow was completely blocking their one driveway. The way they did it. Which I don't think is right either.
So Ken, you're saying that the city doesn't plow the bit of road that trails west from 4th Street?
They used to most of the time they did. But now, when they plowed here the other day, they went partially down, and there's like one path, and I don't know who did the path through. The city didn't do it. The city just made the corner like this, unless the city made one plow through, but all they did was turn plowing, all that snow is just plowed in front of.
So they didn't enter to the west at all on 2nd Street west of 4th?
Well, they did, but they went down and they quit before where they want to close the street at. They made their like a U-turn.
Sure, I got you. So when it was closed that you're referring to, when 4th Street was closed, what was the reason for that closure?
Well, they came to do the handicap corners. Then all of a sudden they decided to tear up the street because there was a dip there. And they decided to raise that with no notice to anybody. They just came and shut down the street. And it had to be the rainy season too. I had to clean my car every time before I could put it back in my garage because it was just muck back there.
So Brett, that at this point the road is, it's essentially a functional path, right?
That's correct.
It's used.
And then, as far as the rules are concerned with the railroad property, people aren't supposed to be driving.
The individual I talked to the railroad was happy that it was being closed because they did not want traffic on the railroad property.
Sure, but that's the kind of the universal. I don't think that they want traffic really driving.
It's always been my understanding.
I talked to 2 different people over today. Dion was one guy and the other, I don't remember the other guy's name. And they didn't know nothing about it. And like I told them, I grew up there in the house I'm living in. All but, say, 20 years of my life that I didn't live in the house, or 25, whatever. And I've always used that a lot of times to go out. And like when I was talking to them, they said, they very seldom ever trespass anybody unless they're abusing If you're driving through, following their speed limits and all that stuff, they don't care, as long as you show respect. And plus, a lot of the railroad, their cars, I think they pick up wherever, they use that Second Avenue quite a bit. They drive by to go to the railroad.
All right, Mr. Ladner, would you mind jumping up and answering a couple of questions for us? And Ken, appreciate your input on this one.
Like I say, I know you guys want more taxes and stuff too. But I figure I pay my taxes too, even though it isn't as much as what
Right.
they're gonna be paying. I should have some kind of say-so on
No.
whether I back out of my driveway, which way I have to go.
Mr. Mayor,
go
before
ahead.
somebody else speaks, can I ask a question about, is there an alley there then, Brett?
No, there's not.
Because there's quite a few cars parked on the west sides of these houses. So it looks like they're acting like that's an alley, the north-south.
You mean, you're talking just north of where that road is gonna be closed?
South of where that road's gonna be
Okay,
closed.
that's, so the bigger rectangular building is Ladner's Electric.
How are
And,
those houses on the east parking their cars back there if there's not an alley there, just using Ladner's
oh, probably, unless they're trailing through on the, between their homes.
parking lot? There's no alley.
One of our renters does installation work on cars, so sometimes there's vehicles sitting there waiting to be serviced.
Oh, okay.
Through to the east of our existing building, there's basically a pathway that we drive through there for our use to access that street to the north. Is it third or second?
So your intent is to put storage units north of your current facility, and it sounds like that road essentially terminates at the railroad property. Do people use that quite a bit, to your knowledge?
No, only us to access. If we want to exit our property to the north, we travel north and then take a right or east.
Sure.
The building would never be built on that street. It's just that we needed more room to build the building. It'll never be built. This vacated street will never be built on, if that makes sense.
It's kind of that setback.
But with advice from the city, we asked to vacate that instead of a variance to build a longer building to the north. if
So
that
Brett,
makes
what are the setbacks from the edge of that? I guess what I'm kind of wondering is, so this, like, it's not really the intended purpose of that path for people to be accessing railroad property, but it sounds like the way Jared is talking, it might not even inhibit him from driving on there in the first place, except for he'll be trespassing personal
Well,
property.
if it's vacated, they're the owners. They can drive on their land if they choose.
I'm talking about Mr. Ken.
Oh.
What
I
is the
guess in
setback from?
reference to what Ken is saying at this point, if he travels west or north of his property, he's either on our property or railroad property.
Right.
We have no issue with anybody driving through there, but the point is that even at this point, without this vacate of right of way, west and south is private property at this point in time already.
Right. I got you there. Well, we do want to see those storage facilities built, I think, and it seems like this is kind of the path of least resistance. Justin, what have you got?
So you're gonna build your storage units just right north of your building, and that roadway, that dirt path, excuse me, is gonna stay in place. You just
Correct.
need it for the setbacks, really.
Correct.
Okay.
I believe once the addition is completed, there will still be roughly 40 feet of vacated land before we even hit that street, which
Okay.
will always stay open. I can't build a larger building due to sprinkler system rules, so what we add on, I can never go any further north. So there's still quite a bit of vacated property
Okay.
that, no, the building will not be built into the street, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Sure. Go ahead, Alan.
How many storage units will be included in the project?
There will be 5 more bays onto it. I think roughly 120 103 or 120 to the north of our existing building.
And so the framing will follow as it goes north, kind of the building line.
Correct,
Yep,
exactly. It'll double the size
Mhm.
of the existing footprint.
Got it.
There is a lot of traffic on Second Avenue. A lot of cars that drive up and down that street.
So,
Go ahead. Councilwoman Forward?
so that Second Avenue Southwest will remain a street, Robin, for that half a block?
For that portion. That's what's proposed, correct.
So then the plow would, on a normal, not blizzard snow day, turn around and do the whole width of that street?
Normally on a dead end, we would take a loader in and try to peel that open with a different piece of equipment. Usually a plow doesn't work for that.
Okay. But it would be serviced, like,
Yes.
service is gonna
I've got a
continue
note
on that
here to
half a
check on
block?
that. Yeah, yeah.
I tried to take a picture of it earlier, but with the way it snows, you can't get these picture. All it is
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
Why are there semis on the north side of that vacated, or that right of way? Are those semis in the
Those-
picture?
Semi-trailers, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. They have a special exception for open storage on that lot.
Who's they?
That'd be Randy Meister, the other applicant.
So he'll get the north half of that lot, and that's his building, the newer one that says 116 on it.
Okay.
So he's got that rear access. He has a lawn mowing business, and he hauls equipment
Well, how's he
Sure.
accessing that?
probably from the backside as well as the front. You can see the front of 116 is a nice new concrete pad drive.
But on
into-
the back, he's on railroad property then too, to access the back of his building.
No,
I think that
he will
it's-
get half of the right-of-way. Once the right-of-way is vacated, the Ladners will get the south half, Meister will get the north half. So you'll still have access.
But right now, he's using the right of way.
Right now, he's using Second Avenue Southwest right-of-way.
Yeah.
Correct.
And to be clear, we're not blocking anybody's driveways off at all.
We moved the snow, we're not.
We typically move
The
that
came
snow,
over
Ken.
Our drive area, we moved it, it wasn't a big deal.
No, but cross trucks. From his garage is the same thing, you just take out the U-turn and the snow's all across the plaza.
Ken, I appreciate you joining us here today, as well as you, Mr. Ladner. I think that, I mean, it's one of those tough things. It's like people are used to doing things the way that they're doing them, but I feel confident that this is probably the most appropriate way to handle this building project. And if Jared is saying that he won't mind if a person drives across that back part and won't change it to grassy area anyways, and that's going to be Mr. Meister's plan, certainly, to continue to access that property. I think that that'll probably not create as much of an issue as we're thinking it will.
What happens if all of a sudden they decide to block it off?
Then I think it'll be a different matter. But I think at least for the time being, it's not, the railroad doesn't want people driving on their property. And I know I've talked to people that have told me that very specifically. That's technically the rule in place, whether or not they look the other way if people just do it once in a while. But does anyone else from the council have anything to share before we take a vote on this? Jordan, would you give us a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Norvstrup.
Aye.
Reinbold.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Reif.
Aye.
Liebelt. Fauberg.
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Both of you, thank you much for joining us. I hope that it continues to work out well for you, Ken. It sounds like Mr. Ladner will be very easy to work with on the matter. Next, we've got a possible approval of a property tax and special assessment abatements for properties located at 414 3rd Avenue Southeast as well as 919 South Main Street to allow for tax deed sales of these properties. And Jordan, would you tell us a little bit about those?
Thank you, Mayor. The Brown County Auditor notified us of a proposed tax deed sale for two properties within the city limits. The first at 414 3rd Avenue Southeast and the second at 909 South Main Street. These are both properties that have been, I believe the the homes have been demolished, and the pending special assessments are related to the demolition of homes at those addresses. Staff recommends approval to abate these taxes so that we can get them back on the tax rolls.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Johnson and a second from Councilman Ronayne. I have a question for you, Jordan. You said that this is going to allow for demolition of property?
These have already been demolished.
Okay,
a
because
number of years
I'd
ago.
taken a look at both of these, and it seems like there wasn't a property, a physical structure in either one of these two properties.
Correct.
And the one that's on 414 3rd Avenue Northwest, is that the tiny area between that home and the alleyway, or does that include the alleyway?
It's a tiny spot, very small.
Okay. Any questions from anyone on the council? All right, Jordan?
Councilmember Ronayne.
Aye.
Foberg.
Aye.
Liebelt. Rife.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Reinbold.
Aye.
Norvstrup.
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got our possible approval to authorize the city finance officer, manager, and transportation director to sign an engagement letter with Eide Bailey for the audit of the financial statements for the year ending in 2022. Jordan?
Thank you, Mayor. Our Home Rule Charter and Code of Ordinances, in addition to codified law, require that we have an annual audit performed by an audit firm. We'd like to use Eide Bailey for this year. They have provided us a letter that is describing the services that they'll provide. This is the third year of a 5-year pricing schedule that we've used in the past, and staff recommends approval.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Reinbold and a second from Councilwoman Fulberg. Any questions with this one before we take our vote? Jordan?
Councilmember Norvstrup.
Aye.
Reinbold.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Rife.
Aye.
Liebelt.
Aye.
Foberg.
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got we must designate council members to serve as city representatives to the Aberdeen Development Corporation ADC Board. I'd had a few members interested. Tiffany, Rob, and also Councilman Norvstrup have expressed some interest. Weighing those options, I guess I kind of felt like the people that had the longer term involvement in the process with those guys would might serve as good liaisons, and they both expressed that they'd be able to make all of those meetings moving forward. And so I thought maybe next year we would try to rotate in additional or change the membership, at that point. But I guess I'll let the council speak on this one.
Since you named me, I guess it's up to the council. I just thought having both perspectives on our vote be represented to the ADC makes sense, but it's up to you guys. I mean, not to freak out because of it, but I just thought having both perspectives makes sense. So,
If I might be heard on this, Mayor.
Go ahead.
I've had arguments with Alan publicly about who is physically older, but I'm certain that he and I have got the most tenure on the council. And that's, and by the way, if Alan wants to win the argument on who's older, he gets it.
I'll bring my birth certificate next week.
We'll compare birth certificates. But I do, I've been a longtime supporter of the Development Corporation, and so forgive my campaign speech, but with all due respect to Councilman Langer, she is also a newbie, and I think it would be good for the council to be represented by somebody who has been a long time supporter of the Aberdeen Development Corporation, and a younger member of the council, somebody with less tenure. And I'm willing to serve the time on that board. Frankly, I was a little ambivalent when Councilwoman Goldberg asked me if I would join it as a ex officio member, but I'm willing to devote the time, and quite honestly, I'd like to do it.
Thank you, Rob. Then I would take a motion for Councilman Ronayne and Councilwoman Langer, I guess. Didn't write her name down this time, but she's gone.
Can I
So-
just add a point of clarification?
Go ahead.
Oh, the email I sent was just about trying to get someone to represent the city. It wasn't necessarily saying that who it should be.
Wasn't a broad endorsement.
No, it wasn't
A
a broad
rescind her-
endorsement of
I
of who it should
make
be.
it
I
known
just
that
said I'd be willing to
Councilwoman
jump off one of
Fulberg
my
rescinds her endorsement of candidate Ronayne.
Also, I don't know that the ADC has to accept whoever is appointed by the mayor and approved by the council, because we didn't approve that agreement with the ADC. Right now, the bylaws of the ADC say the city manager is ex officio. There's no new document that says the council will appoint two people, because that was in one of the proposals that wasn't approved.
Okay, well, we can.
Can I weigh in on this?
Oh, go
one?
ahead, Ron.
Councilwoman Fulberg had mentioned that to me before the meeting started, and having had a few minutes to think about it, I have not looked at the ADC bylaws, but if that's correct, that they've only designated the city manager as the person who can sit on the board, that's fine. But if they decide to move forward and make some changes and amend those bylaws to allow for a liaison or a council representative in whatever fashion, there's no harm in this body moving forward and making that designation now, and then that person would be ready to go if that change is made.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion if someone was interested.
I'd make a motion for Rob.
I'll second.
I've got a motion from Councilman Reinbold, a second from Councilman Johnson. Any other discussion before we take a vote? Jordan?
Councilmember Ronayne.
Aye.
Fulberg.
Aye.
Liebelt. Aye. Reif.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Reinbold.
Aye.
Norvstrup.
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye. Motion does carry. Thank you all very much. Next, we've got our possible acceptance of 5 Physio Control Life Pack, 15 monitor defibrillators for use of the fire department from the South Dakota Department of Health. Jordan, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Thank you, Mayor. I thought I saw Joel getting up over there. But this is just a formality that we have to show in our minutes that we're accepting property as a donation, and this is that. Staff recommends accepting it as a donation.
I'll move to approve it.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Ronayne and a second from Councilman Reinbold. Any questions for either the fire chief or for Finance Director Jordan or McQuillan on that one? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion does carry. Next, we've got the possible approval to accept the Sourcewell governmental bid for a new Caterpillar 150 motor grader in the amount of $369,429 as submitted by Butler Machinery. City Engineer Robin Bob Zine, what can you tell us about this motor grader?
This is similar to a purchase that we did roughly a year ago. And we just took possession of that particular unit on Wednesday of this week. So the supply chain stuff is still going on. So the earlier we do this, the more likely it is we will have this next unit for snow removal of 2023, 2024. It is a little more expensive. As you can see, the cost is about 12.8% higher this year, and add that up on a $300 and some thousand machine, it's about $42,000 higher. But it still pencils out for us to do this rather than leasing all of our units, which we figure there's probably a 10 to 12 year payback. So as you can see, the rest of our units that we own are in a much older range, 19 to 22 years old. So we do keep the equipment. We don't put a lot of hours on them because there are a lot of years for snow removal where we don't do a lot of work, but when we need them, we need good units, and we're recommending purchasing another one so that we can make sure that we have the fleet when we need it.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Johnson and a second from Councilman Rife. So, Robin, any clue of how long you expect that this one will take to actually arrive?
Well, the last one took 11 months to receive it. That's a long time. The reason why we're doing this purchase now is because we will see another increase at the first of the year, which you've heard on a lot of pieces of equipment. You know that's typically how they do their increases is at calendar years. So we're doing it before the first of the year to try to make sure we offset that, or we'd be paying more yet. But yeah, 11 months.
And then that one that was delivered Wednesday, is that just good timing, or how did that work out so well for us?
Apparently it was on a boat going on a cruise around the world or something. So we've known it was produced over a month ago, but just it couldn't get here. So, yeah.
We've got our motion and our second. Go ahead, Councilman.
Could I ask one question if I may, Mayor?
Hold on 1 second. Councilman Johnson beat you to the punch.
Oh, didn't hear.
Age before beauty, Rob. So just to clarify, this is the MSRP on this model is over 650,000, and then there's discounts, so the purchase price is brought down by almost 300. Wow. And out of curiosity, are these built to order, or is this just how long 11 months the production queue is for something like this? Like, does the production start once we approve it and then they start going, or is this just the factory delay takes 11 months?
Yeah, they do not have these in the queue until you place the order. So it is something that it may take months before they put it in that queue.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's a really long time.
Yeah. Councilman Ronan?
Alan, the correct phrase is throw your pearls before swine.
Well, they told you not to do that.
So, Robin, we pay a lot of money to rent these when we need them. Do we ever lease ours out? Is there a market for that time of year when we're not using them as extensively?
I guess I've never contemplated doing that. There might be a market, but I'm not sure we'd be comfortable with the condition we'd be getting them back in, because the construction industry will use them hard. There's no question.
Yeah, I bet that's right. Okay.
But there might be a business idea for you there, Rob. Turo for road graders.
If you'll contribute the capital, I can line it up for you, Mayor.
Sounds good. We'd run it through Aaron's new innovation center, and we'll all be a little bit better
Just
off.
make an Uber app for graders.
Yeah. All right. Jordan, would you give us a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Norvstrup.
Aye.
Reinbold.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Rife.
Aye.
Liebelt.
Aye.
Foberg.
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got our possible approval of a change order number 3, which amounts to $36,800, as well as a payment number 7 in the amount of $36,432 to Reedy Construction for work on the North Dakota Street roadway improvement projects. City Engineer Robin Bob Zine is excited to talk about those items as well.
Thank you. This primarily is to get us, the contractor asked for some additional compensation due to the fact that they had to do what they call potholing because of the presence of a gas main within the roadway section itself. Became very potentially dangerous situations, so they ended up doing a lot of extra work to make sure they did not have something blow up, do excavation within the area where they could potentially hit this gas line. And so that's what the change order is for. And basically then the pay request would be that amount less the retainage that we are holding. So we're requesting the additional payment to them to make them whole on the extra work they had to do for the gas main relocation.
I will move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Johnson, second from Councilman Norvstrup. Are we finished with this one then, or is there another outstanding pay requests that'll come in for that project?
Yeah, I think we've got $27,000 remaining for little finish up stuff in the spring.
Okay. Any questions for city engineer on this one? Jordan, roll call vote.
Councilmember Ronayne,
Aye.
Foberg,
Aye.
Liebelt,
Aye.
Reif,
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Norstrup,
Aye.
Mayor Shonneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Robin, thank you very much. Next, we'll move along to our possible approval of payments for the work on the airport improvement projects, as well as to authorize the city manager to sign those requests. We've got 3 payments, 37, which goes to Helms and Associates for $274.80. We've got payment 11, also to Helms for $374.02, and we've got payment 3, also to Helms for $14,975.88. Transportation Director Rich Krokl joins us here tonight. Rich, what can you tell us about those 3 payments?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So on AIP 43, payment number 37, and AIP 47, payment 11, those are continuing administration, construction administration fees or payments. And payment 3 on AIP 48 is for continued design work and engineering for the runway rehabilitation project that we're looking at doing it for next year. Airport Board recommends approval of all 3.
Move to approve all 3 payments.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Johnson, second from Councilman Reinbold. Any questions or comments on any of these payments before we take our vote? Jordan.
Councilmember Norstrup,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Reif,
Aye.
Liebelt,
Aye.
Foberg,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Mayor Shonneman.
Aye, motion does carry.
Thank
Next,
you.
Thank you for joining us tonight, Rich. I appreciate it. Good to see you. Next, we've got a review and approval of our claims and payroll. The bills will be for this week, December 19th. The payroll will be for the period of December 4th through the 17th, as well as any ancillary expenses that you get by having people on payroll. Can I get a motion to approve the payments and payroll?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Liebelt, second from Councilman Reinbold. Jordan, would you give us a roll call vote? Final one of the night.
Councilmember Ronayne,
Abstain.
Councilmember Foberg,
Aye.
Liebelt,
Aye.
Reif,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Norstrup, Mayor Shonneman.
I will abstain to Helms and Associates as well as the House of Glass. Otherwise, I will vote yes in favor of that, and the motion does carry. Next, we've got our city manager's report. Joe, what have you got for us this evening?
Well, I guess fortunately the snowstorm is over, but I just thought it was a pretty good opportunity. We haven't had a snowstorm like that since I've been here, or a little bit. We've been pretty lucky the last couple winters, and talking about it's probably been about 5 years since we've seen a storm like that. And it wasn't awful, but I just thought maybe it would be good to recap some of the things that happened somewhat behind the scenes. Because, you know, we all sit at our homes and our offices and see things. So I thought maybe giving perspective to this. And one of the, I'm going to give several kudos throughout this discussion, but first it needs to go to the National Weather Service folks in our Aberdeen office, because they were, I want to say accurately, describing the storm days before it hit. I know for sure I had decided by Sunday that I was pretty secure what was going to happen, and some people said it was even as early as Thursday. And I think we thought at first their snowfall forecast might be a little light, and by Thursday we agreed that we were incorrect and they were right on. But so those folks did a great job, and we used that information. It kind of starts Monday morning with a Robin meets with his public works foreman, and I crashed that meeting to talk about, okay, what are you going to do? This is what we're saying. What are you going to do? And I want to just mention that snow removal here in Aberdeen is typically done after the storm, and within 24 hours after the storm's done, or about that, then you see the entire town finished. That's not the same when it's going to be a 4-day storm. It's not the same when it's going to be a foot storm, but that's still kind of how we go into it a little bit. but we knew it was going to be a bit of a struggle. So, Monday it was drizzling, and by Monday evening it was starting to get a little bit slick. And then we saw our first snowfall. We woke up Tuesday morning, there was a little bit of snow. I actually think that made it a little bit better, getting in and making traffic flow. Our crews were spreading salt at that point in time. And during the day on Tuesday and Wednesday, you saw the arterial routes turn to just wet pavement. They were in pretty good shape. And so our crews were doing a really good job. And one thing about this, the intensity of the storm, we weren't able to really develop our crews real well until later on. So we had a lot of people putting in some hours on that early operation before we ever got to it. And then I like to say this storm had two personalities. It was much different Tuesday and Wednesday than it was Thursday and Friday, especially Thursday. Thursday was a big day. So ideally, we would have started our response on Wednesday night into Thursday, but we knew it was going to be a bear on Thursday. The staff didn't really love that, but it was going to be a mess if we got in the middle of it and we were struggling. And that's exactly what would have happened. So what I call the 24-hour run started Thursday night. And it started downtown, and that doesn't always happen. It depends on when the storm ends. But if it ends during the day and we can get out at night, that's kind of what happens. And really the storm wasn't over yet, quite frankly, but it was close. So the crews went downtown Thursday night and into early Friday morning, and then you saw that transition over to the residential streets. One thing I want to mention, and I've had people say I never saw this before, because there was so much snow, we focus on the arterial routes, but downtown was getting pretty rough on Wednesday. So they came in, and on the streets that they can access, that they can get big equipment to, which is pretty much everything but Main Street, they hauled 150 loads of snow out of there on Wednesday and some additional loads on Thursday. So I just want to point that out, that was something that was a little bit different, that the crew knew that they needed to throw that in to be able to get us through the big maneuver. And then Thursday night hit, Friday morning, they couldn't get all of downtown cleaned back up by the time it was time to open businesses. And looking down Main Street, there was snow all over the sidewalks that was going to end up in the streets. So one, to give the shop owners time to clear their sidewalks, and two, to let our night crew actually go home and sleep, because we were going to need them back the next night. We called that off, and the residential crew started. That residential crew was still finishing up Friday night when the night crew came back on. So we were seeing that, and we don't necessarily have enough equipment to run both crews at once. That's part of the reason. So everybody had something, and we were pretty tight on equipment. If something would have broken, we would have been in trouble. So luckily everything was holding together there. And then, so Friday night, you saw phase 2, the night crew came back out. That usually doesn't happen, and finished up Main Street because it needed it, and kind of cleaned up downtown, because exactly what happened, the folks that got their streets cleaned on Thursday night, it was ending up in the streets the next day. We had lots of cleanup to do. Saturday, if you have an alley behind your house, you saw the solid waste crew coming behind and cleaning out the alley so they could be ready for trash removal today. So a lot of things that were going on there. Every single Public Works operations employee was at work on this operation. Several Parks and Rec employees were involved in this. You're going to see cleanup this week. This isn't necessarily over. So these guys, their tongues are still hanging out a little bit, but our crew did phenomenal work under pretty rough situations. And yeah, it was a lot of snow, and yeah, a lot of it ends up in driveways and right-of-ways, and we don't love that. But when there's a foot of snow, it's got to go somewhere. And so I think we're all reminded ourselves of what weather's like. I've heard several comments about cars. You don't have to have a 4-wheel drive to live in South Dakota, but it sure helps, especially this time of year. And so I would encourage anyone that, if you have a car, if that's your sole transportation, that's fine. But you need to be watching that weather forecast. We learned a lot from that, I think, ahead of time, and I think individuals would too, as far as your preparedness and making sure you're in and ready to be there for a few days. We just hadn't experienced that in a while, so we were reminded. But I just want to, as closing, just shout out to all of our staff. Snow removal is difficult. It's not fun. And we got a group of folks that just really go out there and work hard in difficult conditions.
Thanks, Joe. I would like to say that I expect this to be the last major snowfall of the winter, so I'm pleased to make that announcement here tonight.
Of the year,
That's
anyway.
What I've been told.
In
anyway.
2022?
In 2022. We'll see what 2023 brings, but I'm also expecting that'll be mild too. I didn't consult the Farmer's Almanac or anything like that. I'm just kind of crossing my fingers. Anything else from anyone on the council before we? Well, oh, go ahead,
Yes,
Councilman Johnson.
Mr. Mayor, just a couple of questions on the same topic. So, you mentioned 150 loads from downtown. I know it's still ongoing. Like in my neighborhood in Eisenhower, they were picking up in the cul-de-sac and so on. What do you think the total will be, out of curiosity, for truckloads?
Oh, we'll be in the thousands by the time it's done. But, you know, when the entire crew is going, there are, like the nighttime crew, there's going to be anywhere from 20 to 40 trucks running, and they're getting 2 rounds an hour. You can do the math over a 8, 10, 12 hour shift. There's a lot of rounds done, a lot of truckloads. And it will go all week. We will be hauling, widening. There's blowers that will be going out and widening streets out that have blown in, narrowed up quite a bit. We've got all the cul-de-sacs to haul. There's a lot of the aftermath on a storm this large and as much drifting that took place. It takes a good full week afterwards to get things kind of back to normal. I'd like to see some higher temperatures because we need to be able to cut some of this ice that's out there.
Yeah, that was my next question. I think the work that's been done so far is admirable, but now we've removed snow and exposed a slick layer. There's a lot of very slippery streets. And so we're hoping for the sunshine, but is there any other plan to spread additional salt or things like that? I know sometimes at certain temperatures, it's less than ideal to do
That's why the comment that I'd like to see a little higher temperatures. We're certainly, the salt chemical application is much more effective when you get well above zero than when you go below zero. And, you know, it's an exothermic reaction that it's all science, and there's a lot more science to it than you'd believe. But we do want those higher temperatures, but we are applying salt. As the day went on today, I think we put down roughly 150 tons of salt today. So, and the supply chain stuff, we are waiting for salt to come in. Our bin is not full. And so we are making sure we're using that salt as judiciously as possible to make sure that we don't run ourselves out when we need it at another point.
Yeah, good information. One other question too. On South Main Street, I noticed in traveling a couple times during the week that the roadway from 6th Avenue going down to 12th Avenue was largely unplowed, where as you continued south towards Melgard and beyond, it was plowed.
Yeah.
I don't think it was just my perception. I think that was real.
Commercial
really
haul zone, we haul that area from 6th to 12th. So the rest of Main Street is an arterial. So we do not push the snow to the side from 6th to 12th typically until we want to pick it up. If we push it to the sides, then we're messing up parking areas and things like that.
Because of the commercial aspect, commercial zoning. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Councilwoman Foberg.
Just a question about 15th Avenue Northeast with the drifting that's along there. Is there a snow fence or something that could get put along those trees between Roosevelt and is that Harrison?
The Northview Lane to
Northview
Roosevelt
Lane,
area, yeah, that area has been a challenge for a long time, and typically those types of areas you'd want to see a living snow fence, which is what your in-laws have there. You know, they've got it's a nice shelter belt, been there for years.
But between every grouping of trees, there's just a pile of snow coming through.
We could look at that. We could visit with your father-in-law to see if there's a way to work together to see if we can peel it up. Or other things we've done, we will take snow blowers out and we will create ridges out in the field if it's possible, just to try to create those bumps where it'll catch the snow.
Yeah, I think 15th was only like a lane wide for a while there,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Oh, it's been totally blocked at times, yeah, it's.
And that just seems like a
that's
pretty
challenge.
important emergency route anymore.
It is.
Thank you, Councilwoman, and thank you, Mr. Bob Zine. Appreciate your information and the hard work that your crews did over the course of this snow removal period. If there's nothing else, I would take a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion from Councilman Johnson, second from Councilwoman Liebelt. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion does carry. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much.